Okay, this is second week in Advent, Saturday or day 7, from the Handel's Messiah Family Advent Reader by Donna Payne and Frank Lenzo. This is called She Wrapped Him in Swaddling Clothes. For unto us a child is born, and unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, based on Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. And she wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger. Luke chapter 2, verse 7. That's what Mary did for the newborn Jesus. She wrapped him up and put him to bed in an animal's feed box. Many artists have painted the scene. Others have carved Mary and Joseph and Jesus out of wood or stone. But what about the swaddling clothes? Sometimes Jesus is shown wearing no clothes at all. Sometimes he's covered with a cloth blanket or wears something that looks like a nightgown. Japanese artists have shown him wearing Japanese clothes. Africans, Russians, Italians, Indians, and South American artists show Jesus wearing African, Russian, Italian, Indian, or South American clothes. Only sometimes does the artist carve or paint Jesus wearing his swaddling clothes. If you've ever seen an Egyptian mummy, you have a good idea of what swaddling clothes looks like. It's long strips of cloth, which could be as long as a room, were wrapped around and around the baby. Often the baby's arms were pinned to its sides and his legs kept straight together. Sometimes the bands wound around his chin and forehead, so all you could see were a pair of eyes. In Bible times, the newborn baby was washed clean and rubbed with salt or washed in salt water before it was wrapped up. People thought that the salt helped to harden the baby's skin and make it strong. Swaddling clothes or swaddling bands were also called clouts, that's spelled C-L-O-U-T-S, in the Middle Ages. These names all come from the word for bandage. Wrapping and binding and bandaging babies has a tremendously popular method of infant care for thousands of years. It was a custom in many different countries long before Christ was born. Swaddling was not a sign of poverty. It was a sign that parents loved their baby and knew how to take proper care of it. The Old Testament prophet Ezekiel describes an unloved, neglected baby as one who had nobody to wash and salt it and wrap it in swaddling clothes. Not everyone wrapped babies in mummy style. In some societies, babies were swaddled loosely, perhaps against a soft pillow. In others, children were attached to a board or a basket with strips of cloth or leather to be carried papoose style. In European countries, swaddling lost its popularity only a few hundred years ago, perhaps because of the new ideas about personal freedom. But some form of swaddling had never been out of fashion. Today, there are still places where parents wrap their babies in cradles, baskets, boards, or slings. Even in modernized country, a doctor might suggest soothing a fussy baby by swaddling in a blanket. Every parent who holds a crying baby close or offers to tuck a worried child into bed quiets the child in a swaddling way. There are lots of reasons people thought it was a good idea to tightly swaddle their infants with long strips of cloth. Many thought it made the baby strong and helped to straighten its legs and body. An old-time expert wrote, "The child must be swaddled to give his little body a straight figure, which is most decent and convenient for a man, and to accustom him to keep upon the feet, for else he would go on all 4 feet as most animals do." Other opinions were that swaddling kept babies from hurting themselves, kept them warm, or made them easy to carry. Everywhere, parents swaddled their babies because they loved them and wanted to protect them. Swaddling is a loving act. It also means to tie up, control, hold down, restrict, and restrained. And can you imagine? God was swaddled. Today's reading tells us that the Son of God is the greatest of the great. He is a prince in charge of all governments. He is mighty and wonderful and everlasting. This very God became a man, a baby who was wrapped in swaddling clothes. In his human birth, Jesus put aside his power and glory and became swaddled, humble and human and restricted. The Wonderful One lived the life of a commoner. The Supreme Counselor was silent before his accusers. The mighty God did not carry his army of angels to save him from the cross. The everlasting Father was an obedient Son. The Prince of Peace was wounded for our sins. All this Jesus did for our salvation. King of Kings, Lord of Lords, swaddled baby. And here's a picture. And that is all for today.